Hey guys, Alistair from Team Talk Cut here. We're back at it with another post ban list slash post dude tier list. So if you guys like hearing me yap about what I think the best decks are, then look no further. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more of this or guides on any of these decks. And without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start off with Vanquish Soul. This is a crowd favorite. I like this deck a lot. Unfortunately, it suffered a lot of hits on the latest ban list. And I don't know, the biggest issue with Vanquish Soul before was that you didn't see Vanquish Soul cards, and the K9 cards didn't really fix that. And now that you have 2 less copies of Raisin and 2 less copies of Stake in your deck, the consistency is just not there. So I don't know. I think I'm pretty down on this deck, unfortunately. It's really sad to see what happened, but hopefully we'll get at least raised to 2 at some point, and then maybe this deck's playable again. But as of right now, I don't think this deck is very good. Yummy is probably one of the best decks. The support it gets in Dude is really good. They don't lose to SP on their field spell anymore. It's just good, super compact engine, 20 hand traps. I don't know, it's just good. If you like your combo decks, then this is probably the best deck, but I don't know. I'm not really a fan of this deck personally, but it's probably one of the better decks, and it probably will shape the format around it. Purge is also a really good card. This deck can play that. Yeah, I don't know, the deck's just good. Blue Eyes. I think this deck has fallen off a lot, personally. I think if you're gonna play this deck, you should just be playing Draco Tail. I don't know. I just don't think this deck is very good anymore. I mean, you can still probably do well with it. It's still like it's like not nothing, right? But I don't know. I think it's in Solid Rogue at the very, very bottom of Solid Rogue. I don't want to say it's like casual locals, but I don't know. It's fallen off. Draco Tail. I've been seeing a lot of talk about this deck because it didn't get hit on the ban list, and it has a theoretically good Yummy matchup, and Vanquish Soul being one of its worst matchups got hit on the ban list, so theoretically the deck's better now. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this deck is as good as people are making it out to be. Like, it's still really good, it's still a solid option, but I don't know. I think on paper, it has a good Yummy matchup, but in reality, both your traps get ashed or purged, and you're really just like, if you didn't draw more than like 1 to 2 hand traps going, if you didn't draw more than 1 hand trap going first, honestly, sometimes even 2, you really can't put up enough interactions to stop an opponent. And also, the support that the K9 decks are getting, and yet that Yummy gets in Dude is just really, really good compared to what Draco Tail gets. I mean, it gets like what, Frixel, which that card is not that good except for in Branded Draco Tail, and in Branded Draco Tail is kind of its own thing, but I don't really know how good that deck particularly is, but I don't know. I think this deck is still a good choice for the format, but I don't get a lot of the hype. And you know, as somebody who's done a deck profile on this deck and has, you know, topped the regional with this deck, I don't know. Like, I feel like Yummy players have started to learn the matchup more, and I feel like my testing for this deck has not gone super favorably. But if you guys disagree with me, then feel free to let us know in the comments. Let's move on to DDD. If you didn't know, DDD is a deck that is getting a lot of support in Doom of Dimensions. It's actually the cover archetype. I think this deck is a very solid go first combo deck. You know, you go first, and if you do the thing uninterrupted or minimally interrupted, you probably win the game. I think it probably struggles going second a decent amount. And there's a lot of bricks in this deck that you have to play. Like, I've been seeing people playing, like, you know, like Griffin and Defense Soldier and all these other cards that are just like kind of not great draws. So it seems like there are just some awkward hands in this deck. But I mean, I'm sure that this deck will probably get a few tops at regionals and YCSs. But and like if you get to the end board, it's an FTK. Like no, like it's basically unbreakable, but you have to actually get there, and it's a little bit difficult to do that. Crystron K9. So I think this deck was affected less by the ban list than Vanquish still was, obviously. I still think that the hits were pretty substantial to it. Losing 2 copies of Inclusion, which is probably the best Crystron starter, or the best Crystron card that you wanted to see, hurts a lot, especially going second because you can't send another Inclusion off of Sofador anymore, so that if you got interrupted, you could just revive another guy from the graveyard. I don't know. I think the deck is still really good going first if it opens playable, but I think it has more issues going second, and also the grind is just non-existent now. I'd still say it's probably like these aren't really in order, but like probably top of solid rogue. I think it's like the best of the K9 decks, but I don't know. I think K9 cards in general are also worse if Yummy is as good as it is, but I don't know. What's next? Oh, this is Doom Z. The Doom Z cards, I actually really wanted these cards to be good because they're really cool, and I like Xyz's decks, and I think their boss monster is really good, but I think as of right now, they just don't do enough. And I mean, they're a lore deck, so they'll probably get another wave, right? But I tried pairing them with like Millennium and Mitsurugi cards and a bunch of other stuff, and it just didn't really work. So unfortunate, but we'll see what happens down the line. Anamat Risal. This is Anamat Risal, but it really can be like any Risal variant. I think this deck got a lot worse. Losing another copy of X'd, which was your best card going second and going first a lot of the time, hurts a lot, especially because like not having multiples means you have to always put your X backs, and you have to always sequence your turn in a way that you can get an X back into your deck. I don't know. I think the deck is playable. It's not great, but I do think that like, I mean, I will say there is one niche where if people do start moving towards playing breakers, which I don't think they really will or should, but if they do start playing breakers, then this deck does punish that, because like, if this deck gets the combo, it's still FTKing you, right? Because you're getting Ouroboros ripped. You might get Protos, which depending on your deck might matter, probably doesn't, but I don't know. I don't think this deck is that good. It's probably like bottom of solid rogue though. Goki. Goki also got support in this set. Fun fact, I tried to make K9 Goki work because they have a level 5. It doesn't work, don't do it. Goki is weird because they all have a lot of the Goki monsters have a bunch of like battle phase related effects. So they want you to go second, but this deck doesn't really OTK very well. It's not like Tenpai or like Gemini or whatever, where the deck can like OTK you 8 times over, but doesn't really do anything going first. This deck both doesn't really do that much going first, but also doesn't really work that well going second either. So I'm really confused as to what Konami wants you to do with this deck. And like, we also don't have Isold, so that's another thing. But even if we did have Isold, this deck would just like get annihilated by Fua going first. So yeah, if someone can find a way to make this deck work, then please show me. But otherwise, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't think it works. Fiendsmith Piles, or I don't really have a specific deck for this. I'm sure that there is like a Fiendsmith pile out there that is playable. This deck lost Moon, but got Lacrima back, and I think losing Moon hurts for the splashability of a lot of Fiendsmith decks. I'm sure there's some Fiend pile that works out there, and again, if someone finds it, please let me know, but I'll put this in locals casual for now. Malice. I don't know how to feel about this deck. This deck can still set up some pretty strong boards, but I think going second, it is way less resilient than it used to be. You cannot extend through hand traps as well either because Splash Mage is gone and you have one Dormouse. I think that it goes in solid Rogue. I don't think it's like unplayable, but I don't think it's like the greatest choice for this format, especially because with decks having so many hand traps now, it's just like, I feel like it's difficult for this deck to actually get there. This is K9 Sulfur. If you didn't know, Sulfur is getting support in this set that works very well with the K9 cards. I haven't read all of the Sulfur cards in depth yet, but I've played against it a few times. I don't know. I don't think this deck is that great. Like, if you go first and combo, I'm sure you can do things, but every time I've seen this deck play, it's usually like they do Mjolnir things. And if I see a K9 deck doing Mjolnir things, I'm just assuming that the deck itself doesn't do enough, because every K9 deck can Mjolnir. That doesn't really like being able to summon Mjolnir to your opponent's field doesn't make the deck special. So I don't know. I need to see more from this deck, but until then, I'm putting it in casual locals. Pure also probably goes there too. Oh, I forgot to put Pure K9 on this deck, on this tier list, but it also probably goes in casual locals. I don't think that deck is good enough. You don't have enough starters. Case, Jokol, Case, Naroi. Even with Naroi, I feel like you just don't have like enough hands that are playable. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit actually. I want to talk about Mitsurugi. Pure Mitsurugi, to be honest, I think it's the best deck. I might be biased. I might be a little bit biased, but in my limited testing that I've done, this deck is just so overwhelmingly strong that it kind of feels like cheating, honestly, when I play it. You still have issues with Droll, but so I think that Droll is a card that people will be either main decking or siding. Droll is kind of bad into like most of the rest of the format, so I can see it being sided for now, but I don't know. I think this deck is really, really powerful and honestly kind of scary, because it beats a lot of the 1-for-1 hand traps that people are playing, like Veilers and Ghost Spells usually. I don't know. I just think this deck is really, really good. You lost Fairlimbs. That matters for exactly one combo line. I don't know. I think this deck is really, really good, and you should look out for it. All right. Let's talk about Gemini now. I think this is another sleeper choice. I think that this deck's biggest issue is Herald of Arclight. Against Yummy, it's it's very difficult to resolve a Brilliant Fusion going second when Herald of Arclight's on the field. That being said, Herald is at 1 now, and if you've dealt with it, you've dealt with it the entire game. So I feel like this deck has ways to clear boards, and I will say that also it does. I forgot. Also, Paradise being banned also means this deck doesn't really have a going first game plan. So I think if somebody finds a good going first game plan for this deck, then this deck is really strong. I don't know. I think I'm gonna put it in a good choice. I think this deck is pretty solid. No pun intended, because they're rocks. Not all of them, but whatever. Lunalight. I think this deck is very powerful. Obviously, if you set up Liger, you probably win. A lot of decks can't really out Liger in engine. I think this deck does struggle playing into certain hand traps a lot of the time. But if you get there, you get there, right? And Heavy Poly is also really good going second. Like, you resolve that going second, you probably win the game. I don't know. I'm putting it in a good choice. I think this deck's really scary. I think people will respect it more, so it probably gets worse, but I'll still put it in a good choice. Memento. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know much about this deck in relation to this format. It's probably as good as it is in any format. People who are good at this deck will probably be good at this deck. And yeah, that's all I can really say about it. It's probably good. It's a solid combo deck. Honestly, Crystron could probably go up here now that I think about it, because I don't know, it feels better than these decks. I haven't tested it enough, but it feels better than these. Ritual Beast. I threw this on here because I've seen people messing around with it just because, I mean, I also like this deck a lot, right? But because Lancia is being taken out of people's side decks because Malice got hit in the ways that it did, so I've seen people trying it again. I don't think it's that great, but I can also see somebody winning a regional with it. I don't know. I think if Protos is good into your deck, then this deck is probably a nightmare to play against. But I don't know. I think there's a chance that this deck is really good. But I don't know. I'll put it in solid, like bottom of solid rogue. I'll have to see. This is the Radiant Typhoon deck, the MST archetype. Just a side note, MST is actually a really powerful card when it's searchable. Like, I've had a lot of games in testing with this deck where I like actually opted to search MST and like having it be really high impact against certain decks. Like, this deck probably has a favorable Draco tail matchup, unironically. I don't know. As a pure deck, I don't think it's strong enough. And I don't know. I think as an engine, this deck has potential. I don't know which decks play this as an engine. I know Skystriker plays some of the cards, which I think is pretty cool. I know that, what's it called? Like rank 3 decks can play this as an engine. Runic can play this as an engine, but I think Runic's probably unplayable because of the way the new time rules work. I don't know. I think this has like potential to do something as an engine. Like as a deck, it's probably like down here, but as an engine, it's probably somewhere over here. So I'll just leave it here for now. Mermail. Hear me out. I think there's potentially something scary here. I was testing this deck out because I wanted to see how good Dominus Spiral was as a card. And, I mean, spoiler alert, that card's like pretty solid when you get to use it. I don't know. I think this deck is okay, but if Mitsu is the best deck, then this deck probably doesn't get to be played, because if people start playing Droll again, then this deck does get shut down pretty hard by that card. So, I don't know. I think there's something there. I don't know. I'm not good enough at the deck to solve it, but I'm sure somebody will solve it. Orchist. I think this deck lost the ability to hybridize both Mitsu and Fiendsmith cards, and I think as a result, it got a lot worse. I could be wrong about that. Lily can yell at me if he wants to, but I'm putting it in locals tier. Striker. I'm sure with a good pilot, this deck actually might be solid, but again, it probably falls into the issue of Mitsu being best deck, so Droll seeing play, so I'll put it in solid rogue though. It's like, depends on how the format shakes up. Snake Eye! These guys got Ash and Poplar back to 3. You can even play this as like an engine in Yummy, but I don't think it's worth it just because like you lose the ability to play Purge, and also you add like a bunch of bricks to your deck. I don't know. I don't think Snake Eye, and like Moon is gone, so Snake Eye Fiendsmith doesn't really work. I don't know. I think it's like probably like casual locals. I don't really know what this deck does, but if somebody has some crazy Snake Eye deck out there, please let me know, because I have a lot of friends who would probably like to play it. Last one's Tri-Brigade. Oh, that's another deck that plays the Radiant Typhoon cards as an engine. I mean, these cards are good, but like, I feel like they're a little bit too late. Like, I feel like this deck is not strong enough to keep up with 2025 decks, even though Mouser is like just an insane card. I mean, I don't know. I want to like this deck, but I think also getting Impulse on your Revolt. Revolt is just not as strong of a card as it used to be. Getting Impulse on that card is a thing, and it will happen to you, and it's just not enough. I don't know. I think this deck is probably like casual locals here. But honestly, if somebody tops a regional with it, I will be surprised and I will be happy for them. But that wraps up the tier list, everybody. If I left your favorite deck off the list, or if I ranked your favorite deck in a spot that you believe it doesn't belong, please let me know in the comments and we can talk about it. All right, thanks so much, guys. Bye.